How's your relationship with time? Are you wired and tired, stressed and overwhelmed, busy and going nowhere? Or just want to scale your business? Welcome to Take Back Time with your host, Penny Zenker. Penny focuses on books, strategies, tools, and tips to help you work smarter and approach your time more strategically. As a result, you can have more energy, focus, and get more done in less time. Be more efficient and effective. Get ready to take back time.
Hello, and welcome to Take Back Time. My name is Penny Zenker, and I'm your host. And on this show, we're looking for ways to help you to work smarter, to think smarter, and to achieve your goals faster. And so today, I have Peter Sandeen with me, and he is best known for creating marketing message that make people immediately feel like that's perfect for me. He's often called the marketer's marketer because over half of his clients are other marketing experts who want to see their own blind spots and make sure that they're focused on what matters most. And you know, as an audience, that's what we want to do, is to focus on what matters most, right? I'm wearing the t-shirt today. So it says focus on what matters most. So Peter, welcome to the show. I'm excited to talk to you today.
Thanks for having me.
So why are marketers attracted to you? I mean, I know you said to get their blind spots, but what's your unique marketing message that has those people so attracted to you? I think that's really interesting.
Honestly, it is because I focus primarily on the messaging, and very few people do that. And even if you do that, you still need help with it. A lot of my clients are specifically marketing messaging experts because they know how important it is to get it right. And they also know how impossible it is to do for yourself very effectively.
Totally.
I mean, if I ever try to do it based on my gut feeling, it's terrible. I have to follow my own process religiously to get to a good result. You have to get around those blind spots somehow. And that's what I've been doing for so many years that it's just, and honestly, other thing is that I started out as a copywriter and I specifically wrote for other marketing experts. I told them that if I can't beat your current sales page, you don't pay me. And
I like that.
Yeah, I generally beat them. So
right.
I still sometimes get those inquiries. And also I've done conversion optimization, which is interesting for marketing people. I've done a lot of funnel stuff, and specifically like not the fancy stuff that takes forever to build, but the like, how do you actually build something that fits your situation? I'm happy to go all fancy with the advanced stuff, but you usually shouldn't use it anyway. And most of the really top level people who do funnels are people who are all about the fancy stuff. So
right. Well, I think that's what attracted me to you is it's more pragmatic, right? You can do that stuff, but you can do really basic fundamentals that work and you don't need to do the fancy stuff, right?
Yeah. Most marketing is like that. Like there are a few things you need to get right. When you get those few things right, you get to good results. You can then go from there to amazing results with all these fancy tricks and such, but you don't need any of that to get to really good results.
Absolutely. And I think people, they skip that step. They just want to go to the amazing results and they don't start and realize where they are and how quickly they can get some pretty good results. I think there's an expression that says, don't forego, I can't remember what it is. It's something about that you procrastinate or because of perfectionism of trying to be great that you don't even get to good.
Yeah. Perfect is the enemy of good, I think.
Yeah, maybe.
Or something like what I always say is done is better than perfect. I'm not sure if I've stolen from someone that saying, but that's what I keep telling myself. But yeah, I don't want to attribute it to myself because it might be that I've just taken it from somewhere. But yeah, what people often forget is that all that advanced stuff, it doesn't work at all if you don't get the basic stuff first. Like Absolutely. If you don't have the basics right, nothing else is going to compensate for that. And that's something that a lot of people who do this for a living, they sort of forget how those simple things are so obvious to them. They've already figured it out in the last 5 or 10 years that they've been doing it. They sell the same thing. They know exactly how to do it.
Right.
So they've now spent years just looking for the next thing that improves their already very good results. And they're understandably excited about it. But usually those super advanced things just don't really help others than those who already get good results.
It's the wrong sequence, right? It's just in the wrong sequence. Important and valuable but not in that sequence.
Yeah.
So let's get back to, you said you're all about the messaging. Now, the messaging is one of those core fundamentals, right? Why is it so hard? Why do people get it wrong? And then we'll talk about some tips on how to get it right.
Well, the basic thing is that you're too close to your own thing. So whatever you think is important is completely irrelevant. It doesn't make any difference what you think to what the other person is going to think. Like what you know to be true, what you know to be valuable, what you know to be different, none of it matters.
We're not our perfect customer, right?
Yeah. Like unless you pay for yourself to buy the thing, like it doesn't matter what you think. You need to understand how your target customers think it. And that's one of those things that like usually when people talk about target customers, they think about, well, how do we describe the target customers? What do they look like to us? That's good if you're like buying TV ad space or such. And okay, it's good in many other cases too, but like that doesn't tell you what you need to say. You need to understand how they view you and what you're talking about, what you're selling. And that's really hard. It's really, really hard to do for your own thing, even if it's relatively easy to do for somebody else, because you're not so close to it. You don't know it so well. So that's really what causes the trouble.
So what are some tips that you can give the listeners of how they can start to get out of their own way, to step aside and really get clear on how to message that's appropriate for their product or service?
Well, I think one of the simplest things is to just think of if you can only say one outcome, if you can only say one sentence and not a long one, just like you will get this outcome, then what can you say? Something that person you're talking to, whether it's one person or a million people online or whatever, that they would be like, oh, tell me more. That sounds good. What would that be? And if you can figure that out, you're already really far ahead of most of your competitors, honestly.
Well, isn't it though, like, let me use me as an example, right? So, because I think people can relate to samples and examples, right? So I think I've got a message that relates where I say, I help people to think and act more strategically. But how do I know that that's the messaging, that's the right messaging, right?
Well, basically, if it works, then you know it's good. But if I had to start nitpicking, I would first ask, what does that mean? I have no idea what it means. I can guess based on what I already know about you. But what does it mean to think and act strategically? That means completely different things for different people. So I'd already be like, is that really an outcome? Is that something people get? Or is it something that for you describes what you do? It might work, but it is one of those things that I'd immediately be like, I would consider, is there a better word than strategically? Because the word strategy is just so overused that no one knows what it means anymore.
Right.
I mean, some companies have a strategy for how to implement strategies. I mean, I get what it means, but still, like, are you serious? Like,
right. So to pick this out for the people who are listening, so it's really to get clear that the words that you're using are not jargon, too high level, and that people can really get clarity on that.
Yeah.
Say, that's me, right? I think that's what you were saying in your bio was that people say, that's me.
Yeah, like that's perfect for me. Like if I told you that I'm a value proposition expert, that doesn't mean a whole lot.
Right.
If I say that I can tell you the words you need to use so people want to buy from you, that's the same thing, but you're way more likely to pay for the second one.
So it doesn't have to be short and concise is what I'm hearing. No. Some people say the shorter the better, right? Have a real short.
No, it really doesn't need to be. And like, it depends on the context. If you're writing a Google ad, it has to be short because there's just no space. But I started out as a copywriter. I learned that the longer, the more sales you make. As long as it's interesting, as long as it's good, as long as there's nothing too much, but the longer the better. If you write 2,000 word sales page, I can beat it with a 12,000 word sales page. If you already have a 12,000 word sales page, it's going to be much harder to beat if it's good. So like people are way too concerned about, will people have the patience to listen to this whole sentence? Like, yes, generally people will listen to a sentence if it sounds like it's going to be good. It's the same. I have like I often tell that, well, I have was it like a 25-minute? I forget how long it is. But at one point I had a 45-minute video training that people could get that would lead to another 30-minute video that would only talk about what I do. at the end of the first one, I tell that, like, if you're interested, go watch this other video.
Mm-hmm.
And I told that, well, 25% of the people watch to the end of the first 45-minute video. And they would look at me like, that's just impossible. That's before any sort of like driving people back to it or anything. If it's interesting, people have the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I asked people like, well, how long do you think it can be? And they are like, well, 3 minutes. Like, no, if you're interested, you do watch. So it's not about being super short. It's about saying things people actually want to listen to.
So it's being relevant, right? That's a word that I think with the whole pandemic and the pivot and the shift in our business that's so important, is being relevant to people. Yeah,
relevance is one of the key things. One of the other things is just, do people want it? If people don't want it, then like you're going to have a very hard time. And a lot of marketing is basically people trying to convince other people to buy something they don't want to buy. It's not impossible, but it's really hard. It's much easier to sell something people already want. It's much easier to get them to listen if you're saying something they want to listen to. I mean, it's obvious. Everyone knows this. There's nothing new to it. But people forget it. Yes. They follow some instruction on how to write an ad or how to write a sales page or how to do a video or something. And they don't remember to think, do people actually want this? If they don't, then they're not going to watch. Unless you're there with a gun on their head, like, now watch this video. They will stop. Right. And that's why most videos, even super short videos on websites, just don't work. 5% of people or 3% of people watch to the end. Even if they're, 2 minutes, almost no one watches to the end. So it's not the length.
Right. Well, that's interesting, right? And I did want to bring that up because I think that is a myth, right, that people have about length. And I was always trying to find that short statement that they could be that. I use longer statements, and you're right. I think I get more traction with people from the longer statements that I use.
Yeah. And I get the question about length, but I think it's really much more about clarity. Do people understand what they can get from you? If they don't, then very few people are going to pay attention to figure it out. Like, very few people are going to ask you, sorry, I didn't understand what you're even about. Can you explain? Right. That rarely happens. If they see your ads and they don't understand what it's about, it's not like they click and be like, oh, this is interesting. Let's see what this is about. Right. Like, if they come to your website and they don't understand what it's about, they leave. It's the same with if they get an email from you and they don't understand what it's about, they have to be really a loyal reader to be like, interesting.
Absolutely.
So rather be clear. No one's ever going to say, damn, your marketing is way too easy to understand.
Distractions are the enemy of productivity. Go to distractionquiz.com and find out your distraction profile. Are you a time zombie or a hamster? Take this free distraction quiz today to rate your ability to focus on what keeps you from being a wizard. Go to distractionquiz.com.
So let's stick with me as an example here, just to give people. So you gave that one example about yourself, right, with the value proposition. Yeah. So if I were to shift and I help people to think and act more strategically. Recently, I've moved clearer because I think people understand about resetting priorities and being able to focus. I'm now the focusologist on LinkedIn. But what would you, to give it more, because I want people to be able to do that for their own, right? To say, here's where I am now and how I describe my business. And so how would you make that over? I know you don't know a ton about me and everything, but just so people get a feeling of before and after.
Well, tell me the before and after. What is it that changes when you help people? What's the most concrete change from their perspective? What do they always say? Like, I never thought this is possible.
Well, that's why I use strategic, because people say the reason they work with me is that I help them to be more strategic in the way that they operate. So, but to use other words is I help them to step back and get perspective of their business, to not get stuck in their business. And the result is that they typically end up going from being overwhelmed and overloaded to feeling like they're in control, and they actually double their business as a result.
Well, there you have it. Focus so they can actually double their business. That's much more the actual outcome. Operate strategically. Again, I'm not doubting that people say that, but they always say to you with the context of already knowing what it is about.
Right.
Probably wouldn't say that to their spouse or their best friend. Like, this was the best experience ever. This woman helped me operate more strategically. I doubt that would be the wording, but they might say that like, I'm not overwhelmed anymore. Like I can actually focus on what matters. I'm getting things done. I'm seeing results.
Right.
I think that's what they would gush about.
Right.
And I mean, that's not the only way to go about thinking of your message at all, but it's a very helpful sort of shortcut to check if your current ideas work. Is it something that they would be able to say to a friend, not just someone they already worked with, as in you, but something they could say to someone who doesn't yet know the context?
Right. What I like about the question that everyone who's listening can take a look at your own business, and it doesn't matter whether you're a business owner or you're in sales or any part of your business, right? Because you're messaging even internally to each other. So just thinking about, like you said, the transformation that one makes from the before to the after. I recently heard this. I interviewed John Livesay. He talks about storytelling. And that's his way of also bringing that into like your 30-second pitch or whatever, is I take people from X to X. And so I like how you brought that up so that people can be thinking about what is the end result that people get. And I guess if you do from X to X, it can also be then a little bit more catchy, right? Where you can, one time I used the phrase, I take people from being burned out to fired up, right? And that gives it a little bit more,
yeah,
a little bit more jazz.
Yeah, it can work. And like, that's a good example. But unfortunately, most of the time when people come up with fancy words, it becomes much less clear. Like it sacrifices understandability. Like people just don't understand really what it means anymore. It sounds cool, but it's more something that they need to remember that, oh yeah, it's the person who helps me with this fun phrase thing, rather than being like, yeah, I will get this result. Yeah. That's a good one. Like your example might actually work. It's not too hard to understand.
I hear what you're saying, because actually now that you say that, when I had my technology business and I was in a trade show, and we had, at the time, knowledge management was the big buzzword. And like you said, that's also something that can be completely understood in so many different ways. And we had up there, knowledge management system, and we had nobody coming to the booth because they didn't know what we did. And what we actually did was we integrated two platforms, which was integrating Lotus Notes and Microsoft Office. This was a gajillion years ago when those two were working together. And then we had a ton of people coming to our booth when we remessaged it and had it printed out newly the next day. It makes a huge difference. So clarity is more important than that. Understandability is more important than the jingle.
Catchiness. If you want to be very artistic with words, try poetry. Seriously, it often feels that people get way too hung up on the wording. Mm-hmm. They don't put nearly enough thought to what they're actually saying. How do I say what I want to say, rather than what should I be talking about? Clarity is the first thing. Like you can't sacrifice that. If people no longer understand what you're talking about, you've lost them. Like there are very few exceptions to where you can sort of intentionally create some confusion, but like if you don't really know what you're doing, then just don't. Like that's not a risk worth taking. Right. You'll never regret being direct and understandable.
Awesome. So what are some other tips that you have to help people as they're gaining that clarity on their messaging?
Well, another thing that people often don't really think through is that what differentiates them is not just what makes them different from their competitors, but rather first have to understand what you're compared to. You have target customers, or you should have target customers. If you don't, then like fix that. It's one of that triangle of like your message, your target customer, and offer. If you have those right, you're golden. Everything's going to be easy. If one of them isn't right, you're completely screwed. Like you need to get those right. But if you have a target customer, then first think of what are the alternative ways they will think of for solving similar problems that you help them with, or for them, alternative ways of reaching similar goals, or alternative ways of medicating similar pains, whether actual pains or just emotions or whatever. Mm-hmm. Once you understand what you're compared to, then you can start to think of what differentiates you. If you haven't actually listed those out, like how are you going to differentiate? You're just telling people what's different about your solution compared to competitors. But if you're selling, let's say, software, you're probably compared to an Excel sheet. That's a very common thing, that the company you're selling to, they have this old Excel sheet that has like 50,000 sheets on it, and like everyone kind of knows how it works. And that's what you're compared to. I mean, in every objective way, your software is way better, but that's what you're compared to. So you need to understand what people compare you to and how they see those comparisons before you even try to do differentiation.
Awesome. Is there anything else that you wanted to share around that for the guest before? I have 2 standard questions I ask, and I want to get into those, but I want to see if there's anything else that you wanted to share around that.
Well, there's a lot. We'd be here for hours. But the 2 main things is that what makes people want to buy is what they can get from you. What's the outcome? So you need to understand what they actually want. And you need to understand what makes your offer look like the best one from their perspective. If you get those right, you're 90% of the way there.
Awesome. So this is a show around productivity. And so I'd like to ask every guest, what's your definition of productivity and why?
I think productivity to me is pretty much the same as progress. If you get a lot done, but you're not moving anywhere, then I don't think that's productive. If it's making you feel good, then you can kind of argue that it's productive on an emotional level, but making actual progress efficiently is what I think is productive. Like I talk about marketing essentialism, as in do just the things, the very few things that really make the difference, rather than spending all your time on things that technically could work, but actually are not working. And the best productivity tip I ever thought of is like do things that actually make a difference. If you're doing the right things, but look at how people spend their time on marketing. 90% of the time goes to things that don't generate any results, and very few people actually make changes.
So what's a productive, so when you say, do things that make a difference. So in the marketing context, let's say you have your target market, you have your messaging, and you have those fundamentals. What's an example? Because people are saying, well, I think I am doing the things that are making a difference.
If you're just getting started, then it can be harder to tell what really makes a difference because you don't yet make sales. So if you're really just getting started, it's harder to tell. But if you are making sales, then you should know exactly what's generating those results. If you don't, then it's really hard to be productive because you don't know what's making the difference. For a few years, I worked 1 or 2 hours a day and made 6 figures. And how I did that was I did 3 marketing and sales. I wrote guest posts, I sent emails to my list, and I did calls with people who were interested in working with me. That's all. I did no other marketing because I just didn't have the motivation. All of those I took care of everything I needed to. I got myself in front of potential buyers. I offered them something they wanted, so they joined my email list. And on the email list, I occasionally would tell them that, hey, if you're interested in getting help with this thing that I just talked about, then click here to schedule a call with me. That's it. It was productive because it was effective. I only did the things that really moved the needle. There was nothing excess. So once you're at the point you're making sales, then everything that isn't directly contributing to sales is unproductive unless it really has a purpose other than generating sales. But it's often hard to justify those, at least long term.
Right. So back to basics, people. Guest posts, sending some emails, and then taking some calls, right? Not everybody is a great writer. So maybe doing guest posts, right, and focusing on their email list, but they can shoot videos and talk about their content. And I think it is so important for people to get really clear on what's working and what's not working. I think we wait way too long before we evaluate that. And if we ever evaluate it, some people, it's amazing that they've gone years in their business and they don't know their numbers and they don't know what's working and what's not working. And
it can be really painful, though, to really look at the reality, to realize that, I'm getting the results from more or less luck or from this one thing I did years ago, and I've now spent hundreds of hours on something. It's a lot of pain. Yes. So it's sort of understandable that people don't do it. But if you want to be focused on the things that really make a difference, as in be productive in the way I think productivity, then you have to. You just have to know the numbers. You have to know what really makes the difference to your business. Absolutely. And I'm not saying business is all about just money. I'm definitely not. I do things just because I like doing them. Everything I do in business is I just like doing that, so I make it work. But if you don't have the basics in place, then it's really hard to make any sort of progress. You can do a lot, but you're not productive.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being here. I know you've got some sort of course that you've got going on right now. Why don't you tell us how people can reach you and tell us about the course, and then we'll let them go look you up.
Well, it's actually just about to start. It's called 6 Figure Website. It goes through the messaging. So how do you create your target customer and the message for them? And then how do you make your website work? What are really the few steps you need to have there, the few things you really need, nothing extra, no fancy design. I mean, go crazy with design if you want, but like get the basics right first so that when you get visitors, you actually make sales. There's also stuff about how you create content that actually attracts people there and all that. But that's the course. How you find out about it is that you have to get on my list. There's going to be nothing about it online for a while. You just have to get on the list. petersandeen.com. Every page has a way to get to my list. So just do that.
Okay. Well, great. Well, thank you so much for being here and sharing your marketing essentialism. I really love it.
Thanks.
And thank you all for being here. And that needs to be your theme in each area. It's marketing essentialism. It's your operations essentialism, right? Essentialism across the board in each category is what's important, what requires your focus, and what works, and focus on that. And the rest, outsource or just eliminate it. So I know that's hard because some of the things you've been holding on to, but if they're not producing and they're not productive, you want to reevaluate. And we got some great tips today from Peter in the area of marketing of how you can tune up your messaging so that you can bring your website and all of your sales discussions into more clarity so that you can close more sales. My name is Penny Zenker, and this is Take Back Time. We will see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening. Today's topic is another opportunity for you to put the knowledge you learned into practice. Tune in again next week for more strategies that will help you have more energy and focus to get more done in less time, so you can continue to take back time.